Okay, so Africa did not take part in the Industrial Revolution, which was one of the phases of development the world experienced. But then after independence, the continent kind of conceived some development models which it wanted to follow. I can think of the Green Revolution, which was meant to use agriculture to develop, the continent. Some countries succeeded with the Green Revolution and had some early, development thanks to resources they got from agriculture. Then we also came across what was described some time ago as health for all by the year 2000. This was chanted repeatedly, and everyone's expectation was that by the year 2000, nobody would be sick and die of an illness. That was the thought. But unfortunately, it did not happen. And health for all by the year 2000 failed woefully. Today, we are being told that there's another projection, another development projection aiming at 2035. Well, 2035 is not far from today. Are we going to be surprised if after 2035, some African countries will still be stagnant as far as development is concerned? And the question we keep asking is, why is development very slow on the continent? Now, some keen observers have mentioned that Africa's stagnant position in terms of development is due to the mindset of the people of that continent. And so they've said that for Africa to develop genuinely, the mindset of its people will have to change. That is, we need a change of mentality. Well, I am not an expert in transformational mindset. I don't know what that means. I don't know how a mindset changes to enable development. But there are people who have delved into this domain and would know that better than I do. Well, one of our speakers today is a transformational mindset coach, and it is thanks to her that I was inspired to give this very short reflection on development. In the course of today's edition of the Progress webinar, she may be helping us to understand just how a mindset can change up to a level where it's going to enable development. That is going to be interesting, and I guess we're going to learn a lot from that. And that being said, I want to thank you so much and welcome everybody to this 7th edition of the Progress webinar, which is about to begin. Today is the 13th of August, 2021. We were here 2 weeks ago and we took time to listen to some very interesting stories. And I believe we went home with something big. Same thing is going to happen today. We have 2 brilliant Black women who will be telling their stories to us today. We will be glad to listen to those stories. We are definitely going to learn from those stories. One of our speakers is a cancer survivor. She is a woman of strength, very strong, strong in everything, strong in education, strong professionally, and she has accepted to tell her story on this platform, and she'll be very, very glad to do so. Tonya will be joining us in the next couple of minutes. She's about now running off with her school work. In fact, she's a teacher as well. She's an educator. So she's about now running off and she'll be joining us. But we have Christiana Tellen, who is already with us today. She will be our first speaker. And when the time comes, I'm going to introduce her just the way she should be introduced. So once again, thank you everybody for joining us again for yet another edition of the Progress webinar. I know there are one or two people who are joining this platform for the very first time. So this event happens every 2 weeks and is aimed at letting us network, understand things, educate ourselves, meet each other, tell our stories, learn from those stories, and move ahead. We don't know where these stories are going to lead us to. We don't know where this networking is going to lead us to, but I have a strong conviction that it is going to lead us somewhere. And at the end of the day, nobody's going to regret. So once again, thank you so much for your fidelity all the time. So we are about to begin, but we cannot do that without some housekeeping rules. We do that all the time. So first, and I'm happy everybody is muted because we've not really engaged in the interaction yet. So if you are not speaking, we would enjoin you to just mute yourself. Then each time you're about to speak, you can unmute yourself. When it is the Q&A session, we will usher you in. But before we do that, you would have to indicate by show of the hand. Physically, I will see you if you are on camera, and I'll usher you to speak. If not, you can just hit the digital icon, and I will see it from here. Then we have the chat box as well. You can use it as much as you can, especially when our speakers are presenting. So share information, put them if you want to in the chat box. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat box if you don't want to use your voice. That will be at the end of each speaker's presentation. Right, so what else? If you have a glass of water with you, do well to use it because the conversations will be really, really interesting. So my name is Ernest Kanjo. I guess I know everybody here and everybody knows me, reason why you are invited to this platform. But for those of you who don't know much about me, I am a journalist by profession. I'm also trying to get into information technology and project management. But I love telling other people's stories. For some reason, I don't know why I don't feel comfortable telling my own story. But then I guess if I am pushed to the wall someday, I'll tell my own story. Right, so thank you once again. We are going to start. We are joining from all over the world. Solomon is in Johannesburg. I see he has joined us. Jesse is here in Columbus, Ohio, in the United States. Missy BK is in Canada. Solange is in Massachusetts. I am in Columbus, Ohio. Well, without much ado, I guess it's time for us to start. So our first guest is right here with me, and she's ready to tell her story. Christiana Tellen is a transformational mindset coach. Like I said, I'm not an expert in this domain, so she will tell us what that means. She is also an author. She published a book some months ago. She is a registered nurse, and she also sings. She told me a while ago that her first album will be released, in the weeks ahead. Well, she's going to tell us about this. She's going to tell us most especially about transformation of the mindset. Then we will engage her in questions when she would have presented her thesis. Let me put it that way. So once again, thank you so much, Christiana. Are you ready?
Yes, Mr. Andrew, I'm ready.
Right, so if you are ready, we want to thank you so much for accepting to be speaker on this platform. Then this course of people are ready to listen to your story. Thereafter, they will put you on the hot seat for questions. So if you are ready, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. Thanks for radio, Mr. Kanjo. It's my pleasure to be again on your platform. I'm called Christiana Tellen Ajuseh. Presently, I reside in Finland. I'm a mother of four, a registered nurse, an author of a book titled The Power in You. I'm also a singer with my gospel album coming soon, maybe this month or next month, early next month, by the grace of God. I'm also a transformation and mindset coach. So that's just a basic summary about myself. And I would also gladly add that I'm someone that aspires to see everyone who goes through daily challenges. You know, we live in a world where a lot of things happen within us and around us. And what keeps us going is the way we manage all those situations we find ourselves in. Talking about transformation and the mind setting, you know, it's about the way you see things and the way you act towards them. We may have been grown up or trained in different environments, so we may have gone through, you know, different directives, maybe from our parents, our teachers, even our friends, and everyone we interact with every day. And we have learned some ways on how we can move ahead or push forward in life, as they say it. But as we grow up, we should be flexible to think of what is not working or what is not done right and be ready to do it in a positive way. You know, that readiness to create change, to impact change, not only in your own life, but everyone around you and eventually the world at large. So if there is resistance to change, then you know nothing happens. But when we are ready to implement change, then we should be ready to act maybe in a different manner or to see the things the way they are truly are. So I'm here because you are there. Please feel free to ask any questions and I will answer to the best of my ability.
Christiana, so we will just want you to go ahead, um, give us a rundown of your journey, how you got to uh, being whatever you are. Then we will go from there.
Okay, thank you very much. So I am originally from Cameroon, from Limber in Southwest. The last born in a family of eight.
All right.
And while growing up, I, you know, I was being trained by my parents to be very, you know, aspiring, to be hardworking, to have goals, to look at life from a a more broad direction, because you never know what might happen tomorrow. So when I got to the university level, I had opportunity to actually choose what I really wished. My father somehow influenced my decision, but luckily it was something I was interested in. So I studied in the University of Boyer, Medical Laboratory Sciences. And when I finished that, my dad told me it is his wish that his children have the opportunity to go and see the world. It is your decision afterwards if you decide to come back to Cameroon or not, but go out there and learn what you can learn and then be ready to teach others, be ready to pull another person's hand to get to the level or even grow higher than what you achieved. So I at that moment I was thinking like, you know, when you have been in like at your own home, the same comfortable environment where there is everyone to give you what you need, everyone to answer all the questions that you have. And at the moment, you're being told that, oh, you're going to be by yourself, and all those decisions, you have to make them, you have to be careful. Just go, we are proud of you. We are expecting that you're going to be the best. You know, I heard all those things. So I just told myself, okay, this is the opportunity of actually discovering who I am. And I wrote some of the stories in my book I wrote as well. So I gave myself the, an open, I had this kind of open mind, like, let me go and see what is out there. One very strong source of strength for me is my relationship with God. I must mention this at the start because um, I don't think that where I am today is by my own strength. No, it's not by my might, but He has been there to guide me. So when I left Cameroon, I first went to Belgium, and I was doing genetic engineering. I did a course about genetic engineering. And at that point in time, I noticed, like, well, this, of course, is science, but there's something which is not still connecting with what I did back in the University of Boyer. When you're doing something, but your mind deep within you, the connection is missing. It's like, no, this is not for me. There's something that I need to do. There's something that I need to do. And at that point, I started thinking, how can I move on? Should I move on? And when you have very supportive people around you, I had my cousins around me. When I discuss, it's like, no, you just have to persevere. You just have to get done with these. And when you're done, then we can think of what next. You have really people who love you, but deep within you, you still hear that voice, like, no, just move ahead, just go, just. It was really difficult for me, but at that point in time, I just had to pray. I told God that this decision I'm taking, I know it's a difficult one. I know people are going to be so annoyed with me if I take it, but I told God, I just have to follow my mind and stay focused. Let me listen to what this voice is telling me or asking me to do. So I left from Belgium. I came to Finland. I actually didn't finish the course. I spent just 1 year there. I came to Finland, and of course, some of my people were not so happy, and others were happy. The ones that were happy, they'll tell you, they do understand. There are certain points in life where you cannot really explain, but knowing how you were trained up and knowing that whatever you aspire to do in life, you're seeking for the best, they will give you that opportunity to take such decisions. So at that point in time, I started to get the picture that in life, you will still have those people who love and cherish you, but there are certain decisions that you might take at that moment that they will be against you, though they are not against you for, how do I put it, like, just because they want to be in charge of your life, or at that moment they think that when you take that decision, that is the end of your life, or you're not listening anymore, or you just want to take the matters into your hands just because you finally left Cameroon. All those kind of stories, they will come up. So when I got to Finland, I decided to stay focused and calm. I just told my parents that this decision I took was for my own good. I'm inside and I really understand. I know better. The shoes are in my feet and in no one else's feet. So with all the discussions and the support I still had, I just had the strength from God to focus here in Finland. Arriving here, Finland, the language like communication language is Finnish, is not even English, and they have a second language called Swedish. So I left from where I would use English language to another language. That was another phase of my life where I was like, okay, yeah, I heard the voice, I followed the voice, now see where it's landing me to. But ah, I thought this very strong passion was still in me. It doesn't matter where I find myself in. There must be something that I can do. There's a possibility for me, even in this strange land and with a strange language. So I came here, I tried to investigate what I can do to get myself going, to keep me going, and trying to ensure that it's in line. It might not be exactly with what I was doing, but it's in line with it. So I searched around, applied for schools. The very first one I succeeded to have was, I think, was an elderly like agent course or something like that. I struggled with that. At the end of the day, I was like, no, this is not for me. And then the next year, I got into a nursing school. I got there. By then, my language was better. It was really interesting because at the start, I had people who studied language with me, and we were all joking like almost every day to see who is going to get the certificate. Because when you do the language studies, you have an exam to write, and then you get a certificate with that you're able to write like an entrance to a school if you want to study in English. And there was a second option that you can study full time the Finnish language, and you study in Finnish completely in whatever professional course you were interested in at that moment. But I still told myself, like, if I want to go completely into Finnish language, I might even lose like my English background completely, because when you use one particular language for a long time, you begin to forget maybe the others that you have in you. So I told myself, no, I'm going to take the difficult route again. I'm going to study the language just like part time, but I'm going to study my professional course in English language. It wasn't easy. It was easy in school because I studied in English, had the exams in English, but when it comes to practicing, because we had work practice places during every semester, and in every hospital, you have to speak in Finnish language. So I did most of the professional language studies in the practice placement, because that is where they expect you to speak. We are being taught how to write Finnish in the university, but in the workplace, we are being taught how to practice the professional way of speaking. It was challenging in the beginning. I could face so much resistance, to tell you your language is not enough. Some were quite polite, and some were quite rude. Like, just go study well until you get you are able to talk nicely, then you can come. But guess what? I have seen all those people, and what I came to understand through that phase was that as long as you have the basics, when you communicate and they really understand what you are saying, you might not speak like them because it's not your mother tongue, but if what you say is understandable, you're not putting let's say a patient's life at risk, then you're good to go. Because you will meet people that will still criticize you even though you can manage. You will meet people that want to discourage you or to just stop you from working hard to get to where you want to get to. So I stayed cool. I was just focused because I knew what I wanted. I spent three years for the studies, and immediately I graduated. The very last practice placement that I had, there was a need for a worker, so the boss retained me. I even started working before graduation day. So I stayed there in the theater. I think it was the very last one. I really loved that. So I had canceled all the plays, the opportunities that I had before. I said, no, I'm going to choose just the theater. I stayed there for about 5 years. And during the time, I became more exposed into the Finnish, let's say the Finnish environment. When I say so, I mean, when you don't even use the English anymore. That, maybe at school you could talk with your friends or with the teachers, but in the working environment, we meet people who may know some little English, but they are not ready to talk or communicate using English language. And whenever I meet a client that is English speaking, oh my God, that day is always the best day for me. So I just stayed there, and what kept me going was that if I don't understand, if you have to use the broken Finnish to talk to me, I will ask you just to make sure I understand what you were saying. And the boss I had at that time was really so nice, and all the time if I had issues, I go to talk with her, to discuss with her. And there was one time she even added me another extra course for the professional Finnish language. I had no worries. I did it, but I still stayed there. And what I was told is that because you have your skills on, they see that you know what you are expected to do and you do it. You might not be able to communicate it to the best of your abilities, but you're doing it the right way. You're good to go. So it kept I stayed there for about 5 years, and at that point in time I started thinking again, like it was like I had nothing new adding again to my life, even though during that time I had my 4 kids. Yes, I had those 4 kids here in Finland. But educational wise, it was like, no, I still have to move on. There is something still lacking. This is not me. This is the drive. There was this drive in me. I had promised myself I'm going to go as high as I can, no matter what I face or go through in life. So during the 5th year at work, I was checking around, like, is there a course I can take just to add? Because I got tired of doing the same things every day. And even when I want to get into new ORs where they do maybe this emergency services, it's always difficult because there's just a very tight group of people there and you cannot just fit in like that. You have to wait for your turn. So I decided to leave. I took like a work leave. I said, no, I have to go to school. I had an entrance into a master's program in global health and crisis management. I took that and I made it. And I told my boss, okay, because of this, I'm going to be away 1.5 year. I told them I want to focus on my studies. I was so happy I had. So I came back to study in English and I realized how I had almost forgotten my English skills actually. So I was so happy that I came back to study in English. At the same time, I'm thinking again, like, but when I get this done, what next? So let me get a certificate first. So I did that. At the same time, had the opportunity to come in touch with Dr. Francis Mbunya. That is the founder of Authors Path Academy. And through our discussions, I was being inspired to write my book, The Power in You, 7 Steps to Overcoming Daily Challenges and Living a Fulfilled Life. So that was last year, August. I wrote the book, and after writing the book, I struggled with my studies. I graduated. During the time, actually before the graduation, I lost my dad. So I was like, no, I didn't want you to die at this point in time because I wanted to get to somewhere. I know what you had aspired for me, but you dying before even hearing that I had graduated, it was too much. It was like a hit, a very hard one on me. I was like, no, does it mean that everything has to come to stand still at the moment? Because the person, the main person who actually listened to what I was always saying is not there. But I struggled, stayed focused while praying. It wasn't easy. Went ahead for the burial in Cameroon, and thank God everything went well during this time like this. And that is another thing that made me know that in this life, you just have to make your decision and stay so close to your source of strength, because there's nothing else. Everything around you is changing and you don't even know what might happen. But when that connection to your source of strength is very there's a free flow, you will keep going on despite what comes your way. So coming back from Cameroon after the burial, I also was anticipating to go back to work, but I said to myself, I'm not going back to the same old place where there is nothing new, there's nothing adding to my life. No, I need to go to somewhere which is more difficult, and somewhere that it is more open for opportunities. So I decided to change my workplace. I applied, and good enough, the same boss I met there was the former boss in my work in the old workplace where I used to work. So it was kind of, let's say, let me not say easy, but it was kind of familiar because you're meeting someone who you already know. So I got there, had the contract signed, and I just told them I have the basic skills. There is intensive, but I'm ready to try. And then I go to face now a new set of people who have to still understand me, understand the way I work, and understand what I mean when I talk. So it's just like I discovered it's like a circle, but it doesn't matter. Time heals all the wounds, and the perseverance, the consistency, and that burning desire, because you already have a destination that you are looking at. You just have to stay focused. So I presently am now in a theater that they do more invasive surgeries. You know, in my former place, they did a little bit lighter, maybe just the bones or the ankles, the knees, but now they do invasives from heart to the abdomen. So I at this moment I have really seen that the only one who can stop you is yourself, because I have met a lot of people who have been positive. I have a very supportive husband to begin with. I have met a lot of people who have been supportive. I have met some who have been very discouraging. Some of them, they do it indirectly, some of them do it directly. But what has kept me going is that ability to stay focused no matter what happens in your life, no matter what people will say, because they will always say it. You cannot change their mind. The only thing you can change is what you let come into you from those words. If it's their actions, the only thing you can change is the way you will interpret the way they act. Because some do it intentionally, some do it intentionally. So if you want to let all those things to keep you on the same spot, it is you just adding, just it is you who want to stay at that same point. But just keep a close ear, stay focused, and you take what you want to take and leave what has to be left, and you move ahead with life. So coming to the singing part of it, yes, I have been someone who loved singing since I was small. Back home in Cameroon, I always followed my elder sister to. We had a church group, young Christian workers. We also had a kind of a choir part of it, so I was always there. I left Cameroon, came here in Belgium. I was also singing in the choir in church, and in Finland here, I'm also singing in the choir in church. So because of the relationship that I have with God, I think I may have at some point in time felt so low, but I have been doing my best to reconnect with it and build it to grow in faith. Sometimes I would sit and the words will come. I would have some, statements come to me. It's like someone talking to me. So when they come, I quickly write them down, write them down, write them down. That is how I began writing the songs and saving them. And at some other points, I would look at them and the melodies will come. So I just did my best to record them and then waited for the time to go to the studio. And time for the studio was when I was in Cameroon, just coming back from Cameroon. We finally succeeded to do the recording, and by the grace of God, maybe August, before the end of August, it's going to be out. So that's just a summary of me, me, myself, and I. Thank you so much for listening.
You yourself and you, interesting story. There, Christiana, I want to thank you so much. So this is a young African who gets to a strange land, has to study a strange language, has to study in a very difficult domain that is health sciences, has to understand those concepts, those terminologies in that strange language, uh, has to further her education, and has to work. She has to be understood as well because she's in a strange land, speaking a strange language, which is not easy. Finnish should be as difficult as German and other European languages. I know that so well. But then she's been able to succeed. And in the course of her presentation, Christiana said, the only one who can stop you is yourself. So nobody else can stop you. If you have that determination, then nothing can stop you. It cannot be said better than that. Christiana, I want to thank you so much for that very inspiring story. And I'm glad that we've heard your story today. And definitely it's going to touch us in a way. And believe me, that is the idea of this platform. Fortunately, I've had her on the platform and we've conversed with, I've asked her so many questions. And for that reason, I'm going to just let others do that. There is already an indication that there's a question. Solomon is in Johannesburg, South Africa. Solomon, over to you. First question.
Thank you, Ernest. Thank you, Christy, for sharing that story with all of us and your experiences and your growth, especially your resilience to grow and to be someone that continues and will continue to inspire others. My question is, I don't know if it's a question, it's a comment. Perhaps I will put a question at the end of the comment. When we attend seminars like this one, or workshops like this one, there is perhaps a buzzword that is often used along these lines of follow your heart, follow your passion, and something along those lines. My interest is that for those of us that are from the continent of Africa, and for those of us that have, of course, which is one of the reasons why I still live in the continent, is the interest in participating in the decolonization of education. Our educational system from a country that I come from as the Cameroons does not allow us to follow our passion. It does not teach us. There is nowhere in all the textbooks and all the lived realities and the lived experiences that I have had that, or even on a signpost when you are driving to a city or between cities, there are no what I can call points of reference that direct you towards your passion. Everything is like what I describe as a whiskered horse. It means there are things worn around your eyes and tell you where you have to go. How is it that, is it only possible to follow your passion and to know your passion and to identify your passion only when you've left Cameroon? Or if someone is listening to you now in Cameroon, how can they see that? Because in an environment like the continent that we live in, with some few exceptions, which are not enough to become examples, how do you identify your passion? How do you choose difficult paths instead of the ones that have been beaten down the road by others, which is, for example, in Cameroon, and Ernest would know this because I was working on a project called The Generation of Inspirers. You can be a policeman, an accountant, an engineer, a teacher, which 50% of the households in that speaks English in Cameroon have a teacher. And you can be a gendarme, or you can go and work. You can't go into business because that you will be given names and titles. So how do you choose a passion? How do you identify a passion? How do you find a passion in an environment that is devoid of examples? I'll leave my question there. I have a follow-up question, which is part of what I've started, but I just want you to pick up on that, please. Thank you.
Thank you so
much. Okay, Christiana, before you answer that question, Missy wanted to add something to it. I don't know if she's going to do that after you've answered the question, or she wants to just go now. Missy, do you just want to go now, or you wait until she answers the question?
I think it's a good idea to give the speaker a chance to
Okay.
speak,
Okay.
then I will say something after.
Beautiful. Okay, Christiana, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Wan Atta, for the question and the very beautiful comment. I really agree with you that in Cameroon there's really limited opportunity of trying to first identify that passion and maybe growing in it or building yourself in it. Um, what I would say, referring to this question, is that from my own experience, when I was in school, basically the teachers will only look at the courses that you performed well, and they'll tell you, yeah, you will be good at this science or arts. That is how it was being advised. You can do anything reflecting to science, or you can do anything reflecting to arts. And but when I got to the university, I think it was a little bit more specific. Like if you're in the science department and you find yourself maybe in biochemistry and things are not doing well, immediately no, you can't stay there, because you won't progress. So for me individually, my dad will always ask me, are you comfortable with what you're doing? So I don't know if it's a kind of an individualized or a holistic manner of handling this particular situation. But I think there might be so many people who didn't have that opportunity to really do what they wanted to do or what they are good at. So personally, I didn't really face that, but it's an area that can be targeted and can be worked upon if there is a particular way of going about this. We start with little beginnings, because I have noticed that if you do something that is not yours, that very one thing that you can do 24 hours, that even if you're being woken up from sleep about it, you're ready to kick it off, there's going to be a standstill at some point in life, or you would eventually switch to something else. So for me, I didn't really go through that. I'd had the opportunity of doing what is comfortable for me and to even grow and even modify in it.
Okay, beautiful. Solomon, do you want to follow up now, or you come after Missy would have asked a question?
I think I will come later on. I want
Okay.
others to also participate. Thank you for that response, and I think was very generous and very, very well articulated. Thank you.
Great. Okay, Missy, are you there? Over to you.
All right, thank you so much. I wanted to add to this because career consulting is my specialty, and the question hit right at a place where I felt like I could say something. So looking at the question he asked, I don't think it's just a problem in Cameroon or outside the country that people tend to discover their passions. Everywhere in the world, as we are born, we have been sent to school. And the goal is just for us to go to school, do a certain subject, especially in Cameroon. They say, do what you think you can have a job. And right now in Cameroon, it's mostly teachers training, or you go into nursing. And it's similarly the same thing here. Like you go to school and follow the trend. And some people might say, follow your passion. At the end of the day, you don't end up doing exactly what that passion is. But even if you ask somebody, what is your passion and how will you follow it? Some people don't really know, because sometimes you can have a passion that it's not profitable. So the best way for you to be able to find it, the best way for you to be able to figure it out is, first of all, identify who you are, know your personality. Are you an introvert? Can you work in a crowded area where there are a lot of people, or do you prefer to work all by yourself? Who are you? That's the first step for you to be able to start figuring out where you belong. Once you deal, first of all, with who you are, And then you ask yourself, what are my strengths? What can I do and what can I not do? If you see that, let's take, for example, looking at the school subjects and everything, you see that you constantly fail in science subjects, but you are excellent in art subjects. Then that's like light to tell you that, oh, there might be something ongoing with science about me that I don't know. But now that I am extremely good at arts, what can I do? What do I like in the arts field that I know I'll be good at? When you start to figure out your strengths, you will now know exactly where you can easily fit in. But the problem is, since our education in Cameroon does not give us a lot of opportunities, like here in Canada or in America, we have a lot of vocational schools where after you finish your secondary 5, you can specialize to do something. I don't know if you get my point. Which even in Cameroon, we have vocational schools. So what I can add to this is that after you've discovered who you are, your personality, and then your strengths, you can ask around other people to know if that's what you're good at. The fourth thing is to now find out what you're good at. Is it profitable? Because you don't want to kill your time, go study something in school after you finish, and then you realize that, oh my God, there is no jobs in this field. There is no money. I just wasted my time. Now I have to start over. And that's why sometimes people say, you know what? That there is no work in this country. I can't find nothing. It's not like there is no work in this country. It's because you settle for something that is not sellable in the market. You settle for something that you couldn't find a job. But if you start acting by, first of all, asking yourself, that's why I tell people, you have to be intentional with what you study in school. Some kids just go to the university because they heard other people are going. They kill 5 years or 4 years. And after they come back home and tell you there is no job. So instead of doing that and finding your passion, you can even go for internships during your holiday. Look for a few things that you know you're good at and try internships, even if it's non-paid, and see if you're good at that. If you're good at that, if you finish your secondary 5 or high school, it's better off you look for a good vocational school that is doing what you know you can be good at, that is sellable in the market. So that's the point that I can add to this. It's a big topic though, but.
It's a big topic, definitely. Thank you so much, Missy. Be intentional with what you study in school. This is a good message we should pass on to our kids, our younger brothers, our nieces and nephews. Well, our next speaker is getting set back. Just a few more questions. We'll be running off with Christiana. Slim McAnult is in Douala. He has something to add. Slim, over to you.
Yeah, Kanjo, good evening. Good evening to all. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you 5 on 5, Slim.
Good evening.
Okay.
Johannesburg.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Good evening once more to all. I followed the presentation by Christy and the various interventions by Missy and Mr. Atta. And before Christy actually started speaking, I had a preconceived idea or a preconceived notion about the whole transformational stuff. And everybody has geared towards that light, like no matter what we'll do, it will come back to the point of view that is the you as in you, maybe your perspectives, maybe your reactions, and maybe faced with the situations that you face with life and the choices that you make. And as Missy just lastly pointed out, being profitable or not. But, profitability must not be looked into maybe in the sense of maybe financial gains when we're talking about fulfillment personally. The way everybody or many persons approach some situations in life depends on their choices that they have made. And those choices are being determined by many geopolitical, maybe political, maybe economic, maybe social, maybe technological factors, or even climatic and environmental and traditional or customs. So if we have to like say limit some things to some particular perceptions that are of old, we might have a hard time really forging ahead in this whole transformation, this ideology of maybe breaking through to other higher heights. The problem we have with Africa has been identified. It's a problem of mentality. The problem of mentality is not about the educational system. It is not about maybe the subject that they teach in schools, but to me, it's about the way we approach these subjects, how we have been made to know what history is all about, what we have been made to know what literature is all about. Me, I see history and literature as some form of analytical enforcers. I don't see it as some form of storytelling stuff. Personally, that is the way I see it. So I don't see any problem with us being taught history as in maybe history serves us nothing, maybe how to draw as if drawing teaches us nothing. I see drawing as some sort of creative, some sort of creative, innovative mind that is being set on somebody. It all depends on the way that down there, maybe the curriculum or the pedagogy that has been used to implement all these things. So if we as Africans, and then we are thinking that, okay, now maybe we want to forge ahead. We have advanced societies. We have advanced societies in the West. We have advanced societies in the East. They have populations, I mean, a reasonable, monumental level of population that are not making it, despite the fact that they've had well-segmented and categorized systems of education. So I think it ties back to the origin of the whole idea of the transformational mentality. That is, you are talking about God. You can't do anything without having the peace. And you can only have the peace when you have the light. It all comes back to the point of purpose. What is the purpose of what I want to do? How do I feel about what that I want to do? Now, the profitability comes at the point of the fulfillment that you feel by carrying out maybe a particular activity. We have people who have dedicated their lives to bringing up children. They go from hospital to hospitals, they get children who don't have parents and build up orphanages. They don't gain anything, but that is profitable to them. So I don't think we should maybe limit to like always the negative aspects of maybe it didn't work this way, it didn't work. Everything around us works. Everything, it depends on how we perceive and it depends on how we approach and it depends on our interpretation of it. So that is the way I see it. That is my small contribution that I wanted to make. Thanks.
Beautiful contribution, succinct discussions happening here today. He says that everything around us works. It just depends on how we approach those things. Solange, we'll probably take one last question from Solange, or maybe two last questions, then we'll move on to our next speaker. Solange, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you to the speaker, Christy, and everybody else's contribution. And before I ask my question to Christy, I just want to agree with something, a point Mike Arnold made the last individual commented or made a comment. I really agree. The problem of Africa truly could be educational, it could be leadership, it could be many things, but I believe so much is a problem of mentality. We have a mentality problem. And I think until that is fixed, no matter how we enhance our education and you name it, infrastructure, it still boils down to mentality because mentality defines destiny. And I think if we can shift our mentality to a certain aspect or a certain, I lack the words for that. But here, what I'm trying to say is that I believe that a lot of our educational system, many a times it trains us to be job seekers, not job creators. Reason why there's a lot of demand many a times is higher than supply. So I believe that if we can shift our mentality from just being employees and being employers or thinking about business ideas or creating jobs for people to be able to hire others as well, I think that would be a mentality shift and that would bring a really big revolution in our continent as Africans. But anyways, back to Christy, my question is straight and direct. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. And my question to you is, how did you overcome the difficulty? I know trying to communicate, and then they're trying to understand you coming from a different background with a different accent. I can go on and on because I've been there. I understand how that feels. I know that's such a challenge. How did you overcome that to get to a point where you're really confident in your position where you are right now, and you can take your time and communicate and make sure they understand you and make sure you understand what they're saying as well. And that's just my question for you.
Thank you so much, Solange, and everyone who has contributed to this discussion. I would want to maybe answer Solange first. Um, like Missy, was it Missy? Missy try to explain something about the SWOT analysis. Yes, that's a very great tool that I also implemented. Like when it comes to integration here, because I knew the language, I was kind of weak in some areas. So any opportunity I had to learn, to fill the gap when it comes to the speaking, to ensure that they can at least understand what I say, you know, I used that opportunity. And when it comes to culture, that was another difficult one at the start, because we we behave different, not different in a bad way, but we are all different. We were brought up in different environments, so for them to understand your attitudes and maybe the actions that you show, you might be smiling and they're thinking they are thinking you're sad inside, all the expressions and so on and so forth. But with time, everything got better. And one thing that was kind of difficult at the start was the way feedback was being given. You know, back we had a manner in which you're being corrected. Well, some parents would really shout at you and scold at you, but there are some people that will even do it worse than that, and you might feel discouraged, right? You might feel like, okay, this is it. Maybe this is not my thing. You just feel like giving up, like, okay, no, I have to just think of something else. This is not my place. And many people have gone through that and have seen it as a resistance, like, maybe immigrants are not welcome in this particular area, and they feel like, okay, I have to do something easier, so I don't need that kind of pressure that is being faced. Some people actually have given up because of all this, the attitude they show you, or the character. But what I have learned is that it's the way, some of it is from the way they are also brought up, and we cannot actually blame them because of that. But the way I react to it when it happens, that is what has kept me going. I know it's something familiar. Yeah, I've seen that before, so I'm over it. It has nothing, it would not make me feel like leaving the place. And I always speak up when something happens that I actually don't understand, or I need more clarity. I go to speak up, because there might be people who do it intentionally to actually strike you. So I immediately put it up for discussion. If you are not willing to talk to me, I one manager, I will come and discuss about it, get it sorted. Whoever wins, whoever loses, that all the root of it is that I've aired out my mind. So I have tried my best that when work is over, I leave everything that happens in work, I leave it at work. And when I'm coming home to my family. So I try to make those boundaries to make sure that nothing that happens from outside interferes with what's happening inside of me as well. So that has kept me like fixed. And I'm just focused. When I'm at work, everything happens there. I tried my best to ensure that it doesn't distract my focus nor my ability to perform or do the things I'm expected to do. It was in the beginning a little bit difficult, but with time I grew stronger in it, and that is what has kept me going. So, like, if I answered your question.
She grew stronger in it with time, and that is what Missy calls here the power of a positive mindset. Christiana, I want to thank you so much for the wonderful presentation, and want to thank others for the great discussions as well. Just to say one last thing when it comes to understanding and communicating with people in, let me put it this way, strange land, and what we commonly call here the accent. I really don't look at it, negatively. To me, it's just variety, which is a spice of live. I'm going to tell you something about the BBC, which is, to me, the biggest news outfit in the world. The Africa service of the BBC has correspondents in different parts of Africa. And to be hired for that job, you need to represent where you come from. That is, if you don't speak like a Liberian, you cannot be a correspondent for the BBC Africa service in Liberia. If you don't speak like an East African, you cannot report for the BBC from either Kenya, Tanzania, or Ethiopia. That is done deliberately because it makes that service represent Africa, all right? So the BBC doesn't see accent, in quotes, as something negative, but it uses it as, a great opportunity. Danielle, I don't know if we should take your question now, or do you want to come at the end when we have 2 last minutes for both speakers? Time for us to get our next speaker. Danielle, can I beg you on that?
Okay, that's no problem.
Okay, so yes, just reserve your question. It will come at the end. I guess our second speaker is ready. Tanya Kelly is her name. Tonya is an African American with an exceptional story. She is a cancer survivor, very strong in spirit, and she does things which are considered to be things done by men. One of such is sports reporting. If you move around the stadia in this state, and even in some other states, you would always find her covering those very difficult sports stories. She runs a sports reporting blog. She is an educator with a master's degree in education, and she does many other things. Well, she accepted to come on this platform and tell her story. Tonya, we are ready to hear that story. Thereafter, we are going to follow up with questions. Are you ready?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone.
Go right ahead.
Hello, everyone. I am Tanya Kelly. Thank you, Ernest, for the opportunity to come on and share my story, share my experiences. I'm 51 years old. I'm excited. I'm the big 51. And I am in my classroom. As you can see, we have started back to school. I'm an educator. I'm a mom, a wife, grandmother of 4 wonderful children, a mother of 3 girls, 2 who are senior this year. 1 is a senior in college, and my other daughter, my youngest one, is a senior in high school. So senior mom, cheer mom. We have a dog named Zeus. A little bit about my career path. I am a cancer survivor of cervical and thyroid. I started on the move with Sports Hills back in 2016 as a way to live. Most survivors, or I should say cancer patients, always hear those deadly words, you have 6 months to live. And that was told to me back in 2006. And when that was told to me, I had to find something to live. It still didn't resonate to almost maybe 10 years later. So I worked in corporate, worked in many, many jobs and in many aspects of Columbus, Ohio. Then I found a love for education. I started working at a preschool. It was Flying Colors preschool back in 2010. And that's where my education started. I was a secretary, loved it. Loved working with you, working with the families. And because again, those families were a reflection of who I was, middle-class parent who was single parent at one time, who had children, and really knew the struggles of what it took to have a family and take care of a family when you're trying to go to work, make sure your children are safe and making sure that they get to school. So I ran Flying Colors. When I say ran, I was a secretary for 2 years. Left, went into the healthcare field due to some complications with my father. He had some major health issues. And so I had to learn what I call the Dr. Lingo, because especially for us African Americans or ethnicities, when we have health issues, and I will talk about my journey in a little while, we don't know the conversation or the lingo of the hospital, the doctors, even the nurses. So a lot of the information that we need to receive, we don't, because we don't know how to communicate. So with that being said, my father ended up passing away. And I felt that me going back to school was the first step in understanding when health issues arise for family members as well as myself in the latter years, that I would know how to talk to my doctor and be an advocate. And I think that's what we call what we lack a lot of, because again, a lot of us, we went to the doctors, or we waited until something was really, really happening, or we were on our deathbeds before we found out information, or we would ask for information. We have a right to have great care, but we were never taught that. So I call that like a generational curse. And so for me, education became a platform. It became necessary for me, because in that between 2006 to about 2016, when I was going through my own health issues, my family members were passing away, and we really didn't understand why. We didn't understand, why you're going to the doctors. Why are they not telling you what needs to be done so that you can get well? And again, it goes back to the language that the doctors tell you, the nurses tell you, their information, your healthcare information, knowing what's in your healthcare file, knowing what's, again, as generations, knowing your healthcare for your past parents and family members, just knowing those information really helps you out if you know, because it gives them a better opportunity to give you quality care when you know. And so education became necessary for me. So in the middle of me going back to school, I had thyroid cancer. I was at 4th stage, and that's when they were saying, hey, you might not live for 6 months. And I'm 6 months. What? No, we're not going to do that. So I picked up education. I ended up getting my undergrad at Franklin University in 2009. In the middle of a healthcare crisis, I had cardiac arrest. I thought it was heartburn. And I ended up going home and had to be rushed back to the hospital. And again, just the conversation with doctors, a lot of my care was misdiagnosed, or it was half completed, or I didn't get the proper care because I didn't know what questions to ask. And so again, healthcare, I will go back to that. Education is what I always say to my students. Education is the key to success. And that success is not monetary. The success is knowing how to have a conversation with your doctors, how to have a conversation with your family members about advocacy and awareness. And so with that being said, I found out by taking a psychology class that it was thyroid and it was cancer, and the cardiac arrest. When most cancer patients have thyroid cancer, fluid builds up into your heart. And so it caused me to have cardiac arrest. But that was 4 years later. So just think, from 2006 to 2009, no one provided that information or that awareness of those different issues, that those after issues, as I call them, complications that can arise from a patient who has thyroid cancer. Thyroid cancer is especially for a woman at that stage, is usually about 20% success rate. So I am blessed to still be here because I have a story to tell. So 2009 up to where we were now, which is 2021, I've had some major health issues, again, complications of cancer. In the middle of that, education became rooted and grounded in me, in my being, learning how to be a blessing, learning how to have a conversation with the doctors, learning to have a conversation about my health, and being okay to share and talk about it. That word sharing is so taboo in the African American community. And I felt that I had to break that, just in my family, but also in order for me to live, I had to start sharing the complications and situations that I was experiencing. So I felt that I had to, again, keep going on in my education. Back in 2000 and about 14, 15, I lost my job in corporate living. You already know what that looks like with corporate living, where you're used to a different type of standard of living and your job is gone. And what I had to do was find a love and continuing love. And so I picked up the best thing that was given to me back in 2010, and that was education. So I went back as an educator, and I was a paraprofessional. I started from the ground up, making $11 an hour. And just know that even with that amount of money, it can't even surpass of the love that I had for seeing my family, seeing my students grow. 2010, my students now are 22, 23-year-old students. My students that I have reared in the last 6 years are now sixth graders. I am at Horizon Science Academy. So I teach mostly African descent students, Somali descent students, and I love it because it allows me to learn cultures. I think as a teacher, it expands globally, and you're able to learn from not just from them, you teaching them. You're able to learn from them and all the different places that they visit, all the different languages that they know as being Africans. And that was a plus for me when I came to Horizon. And again, my journey was to go back to school. So I went back to school, and as Ernest said, I received my master's in early childhood education, and I am a teacher here at Horizon. I taught first grade for 3, third grade for 2, and now I'm teaching fourth grade. And again, the awareness that I want to bring to my families who are listening is school, even though it's virtual, it's hybrid, it's still the same. I wish my teachers all the success and all the best. COVID flatlined education. It really flatlined education. And for me to have a passion and a love for my community, what I learn every single day as an educator, I'm able to share that with families, with community leaders, constituents that really didn't understand what COVID did for our educators, what it did for their children. I talk about it all the time, and constituents ask me all the time, like, it was not a good situation for 2 years, 2 school years. Even though it was 1 year physically, it was 2 years for teachers and students, and we're still dealing with COVID. But what I found, my students are resilient. They are go-getters. They are explorers. They're innovators. They're creators. They have been able to work through the most difficult situation that they will probably ever experience in their life. And they're going to think back in 20, when they're 20, 32, and they're walking across that stage, they're going to think about, we went to school in the middle of a pandemic. That is something that you see in third world countries or not in the US, and it's here. And we're thriving and we're striving, but that comes from working together, finding those places, finding those ways to make things happen when you don't see it, when inspiration becomes necessary, when flexibility
Tanya.
is all that you have. Yes.
Tanya, it's Peaches Anderson. So I wanted to ask you, you talked about a taboo word. So what do you think about connecting and when you have a passion to connect with other people who may have that type of information and connecting with others? I'm looking for the word. You're networking. I think that's a different type of concept within the African American community. What are your thoughts on that?
For me to be a new business owner, it's and on the move with Sports Kills, I'm going into my 6th year as an empower for my nonprofit organization. We're going into our 4th year, and yes, there's always, from what I've learned from my director, Mr. Vance. He was the director at the time at the Fiesta Bowl when I first went to my first event. He said that there's always going to be crabs in the barrel. You got to find the crab that's at the highest. You're going to find a crab that's at the highest, and you're going to find a crab at the bottom. If you are in the middle, you're going to learn both ways. So you're either going to learn a lesson or you're going to live a lesson. And that's what I've always taken. So, you know, when it comes to networking, I think sometimes it gets stretched out of proportion. So what I try to do for myself is to learn from others. You know, I love the community, and even across the aisle, we need, you know, each other from across the aisle. So those crabs in the barrel is what we, especially in the African-American community, I find one at the top and I find one at the bottom. And then, you know, I'll let them be me. I'm authentic. So you either, you know, everybody's not going to like what you provide in your service. And I think as an entrepreneur, with me learning and having some wonderful mentors, you know, you have to learn to have that thick skin, but still share. Even you might not take what I say, or you might even not, that service might not be for you. You're going to leave with a great resource that might be down the line, you know? So I think sometimes we forget that the first time you meet someone might not be the last time you meet someone. So they might not need your services now, and they might not, you know, and they might have words to tell you about that service, but you continue to be who you are, because there is someone that is there for your service. And best believe, sometimes they come around, even if it's just to see how you're doing, just to ask a question, because they might not know it. Then there you are. So I just, you know, I stay authentic, I stay who I am, and I continue to bring that awareness in whatever, you know, those endeavors are. And at the end of the day, you know, I'm just faith over favor, and God gonna put you in places that no door can be shut.
Wow. So Tonya, yours is the kind of story one listens to and just says, wow. That's an interesting one. Just take 1 minute and tell us about your sports reporting exploit. Then the questions will come.
All right. Woo, I love sports. It's about that time. It's football. I want to say thank you, Apex, for even taking me under your wing and learning just the writing portion. I started on the move with Sports Chaos from the grit and grind. Again, it was a way for me to live, because at the time of what was told to me about my health issues, me and my father was an avid lover, and I'm 51. So in the time that we were growing up in the 70s and 80s, you didn't see too many African-American. There's only 24 Black women that is on the national platform. So I'm on the independent platform. And when I go into a event, I bring a presence that I talk sports, a women's perspective. So so my questions in line of that narrative question that I might ask is going to be different than what you hear on SportsCenter and CNN News. But it allows you to be you. It allows you to love what you do. And what we do, we are an independent media outlet. So when we receive media credentials, we go to the event and we cover the event. So we talk to the athletes, we talk to the coaches, we provide a service to our viewers and our listeners. So if they have never been to an event, we give them all that backdrop, all that sports highlights and narratives and conversation and talking trash. You get all of it under On the Move with Sports Chaos. Our independent media writers and videographers and photographers, they come from all walks of life, and we love it. And we're able to ask that question that maybe SportsCenter might not be able to ask. Mike Moore, he worked between Apex and Sports on the Move with Sports Chaos, and he was able to be on TV with the Big Ten Media Day. Those are things that we pride ourselves on, is when you are providing a service, you know, those are things that happen that you're like, wow, you know, like the Hall of Fame. We were at the Hall of Fame, and you're getting to see those legends that you grew up on. And then when you're able to ask that key question or listen to their story, they want to talk about their college days. They want to talk about their childhood days. And that's where On the Move with Sports Chaos comes from. We're on the move. Sports Chaos became a name that my friends called me, because they know wherever I was at, I was somewhere trying to find a TV. And me and my husband, we've been together 32 years, and it was our livelihood. It's still our livelihood. And it allows us to love something that will never go away, and that is sports. And so you will find it, like you said, we are on from the high school circuit to the collegiate to the national level. And it just allows On the Move with Sports Kels to pull from other organizations, and we work together, collaborate together, and we learn from each other, we grow, but we do the one thing in common, and that is talk sports and talk a whole lot of trash.
Tonya talks a lot of sports. She has had to collaborate with Apex One Radio. She's covered some very big events for Apex One Radio as well. Interesting story, Tonya. I want to thank you so much.
Yes.
Like I've said, you are a strong woman, and yours is a wonderful story. Well, I'll let others do the questioning, then we'll go from there. So, Danielle, looks like you are first to go.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Ernest. Tonya, thank you for your brilliant presentation. And thank you, Coach Christy. So, well, I have a question for both of you, Coach Christy and Tonya. You know, I listened to your story and I was like, wow, this woman is a living testimony, you know. Wow, she was able to, you know, overcome everything that she's been through. And when you said you were 51, I said, is this woman kidding? Is she 31 or 51? You know, you know, my mom is 51 as well, but you're pretty younger than her. You look pretty younger than her, seriously. So, first of all, congratulations, and, you know, keep up with the great work you've been doing. So my question is, you know, when actually you were going through all this, yeah, you mentioned that you are is it cancer survivor?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you were going through all this, so did you really see yourself as somebody that could survive through it? How was your mindset at that moment? And when after you got healed, so how did you feel? So that would just be all for now.
Danielle, thank you. Danielle, thank you for that question. For me, my first bout, I was a young woman, so I was in my 20s. And that was cervical cancer. And to hear those words, you know, cancer was like, again, what you hear on TV, it was like a death wish. And so it's emotional. It's not physical. Cancer is emotional from the inside out. And it's what you gravitate and who you gravitate to. So when I first had that first bout, you know, it wasn't as bad, but it was still cancer. And so to hear those words, you have to find a grit and grind. You have to find a love for yourself and a positivity, because no one, you know, if no one in your family, or if you don't know one who has been through it, it's like you're walking this journey by yourself. And that's when I started talking about the journey and what the journey provided. So that when it happened again, I was like, what? 2 times? Like, come on, God. And it was like, and that's where those 2 words that faith and favor. So when it happened the second time, I understood, okay, Lord, you want me to be this, you know, you want me to be the voice. And so for me, Daniel, I started to share. And I can tell you, my family didn't like it. People that I knew didn't like it, but I felt in my heart that I had to share. That was the way for me to live, was to share my story. And every time I shared my story, I became more stronger. I became more resilient, to where throughout the last couple of years, I've had some complications, and even my family members have had cancer. I have been their strength. And I started to call myself not a survivor, I call myself a cancer warrior, because you are a warrior. You have to build your body from the inside out to take, you know, to deal with cancer, from the chemos, from the radiation, from what people say. Like, my hair just grew back after being bald-headed, being a bald-headed woman for over 7 years. And I was taking a product called Natural Lavish Penguin, and my hair grew. So just, you know, the different things that you come across, you have to find, at the end of the day, you have to find a peace in yourself and what you look like from the outside, but you got to find a better peace from the inside so that you can get healthy.
You have to find a better peace from the inside so that you can stay healthy. Tonya, thank you so much. Any other question?
Well, I would like to ask maybe at the end to Christy, maybe at the end of the presentation. So I was also about asking how where she got her strength from, but I think she has answered that question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. This is the progress webinar. We're doing the 7th edition. So do we have any other question for Tonya?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Solange, go right ahead.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Tonya, for sharing your awesome story. It's quite inspirational. I could have so many questions from what you said, but I think I'm gonna just focus on the one that really touched me really deep. And that question is, what if you believe the doctor? What if you believe the doctor that you had 6 months to leave? What if you believed him?
What I so you said where I believe when they told me 6 months?
Yeah, I'm saying, what if you did believe what the doctor told you, that you have 6 months to live? What if you did believe him? Because here's the thing, if you did, I guess you would have been picking out your casket. I guess you would have been, giving out your stuff, writing your will and just, making all those decisions, getting ready to check out from here, to getting ready to die. But you chose, it's like you look the other way. You look the other way and you decided, you're gonna leave. You're gonna accomplish your dreams. You're gonna be this awesome woman you've become. My question is, what if you had believed the doctor, and what made you not to believe him? What was that drive? What really pushed you to say, you know what, I don't think I have 6 months to live, though he's the doctor, he's the specialist, he knows better than you, but you had to go. It's like a river flowing downstream, but you decided to go upstream and say, you know what, I'm just gonna say, I'm not gonna believe this report. I'm just gonna keep living. I'm just gonna keep going. I'm gonna set these goals for my life. I'm gonna go after these goals. My question is, what gave you such audacity? What gave you such drive? Because it takes a lot of audacity not to believe that. Because I've seen people wanted to really leave and they didn't make it because they went by what the doctor said. Not to say they couldn't be right, they could be right, but you had this desire in you to push through that, to break the barriers and say, you know what, I am gonna keep living, I'm gonna keep moving forward. And now it's about 15 years later, you're still here and you're telling your story and you're inspiring so many people. I think that is just amazing. I don't even know there are no words I could find to really say, but I think that is just awesome to even, think about it.
You know what, just to kind of thank you so much for your question. And it is a belief. It's a belief that you have to. And at first, when you do, that first month or two, I really I took those words to heart and I started to see my body deteriorate. And it literally, it deteriorated quickly. When I went home and I told my husband and my family, my body literally started to break down where I wasn't able to get out of my bed. For almost 2 years, my daughter was taking care of her younger sisters. And then one day I was like, I got something to live for. And that's when my dad would always come back to me in my sleep, and especially at my weakest moment, my father would come back and I could smell his Benson Hedge cigarette, or I would see a flag, because my dad loved the flag because he was in the military. So I would see a flag waving, and it was just like, you gotta strive, you gotta live. And so my dad was this strong person also, but around me, I started seeing my family members pass away from health issues, from major health issues. And I was like, and they're young. My father passed away at 63, 53, they didn't have no living. And I was like, wow, I cannot do that. So I started mustering up and I started to share. And that's with that voice. And now here I am, 2021. That is like a model that I have for my Empower You Foundation. Be a voice. Be a voice for yourself. Be a voice for others. And I'm so adamant about that voice, because I think back myself, if I didn't open up my voice because of my thyroid, your thyroid takes away from everything, from your talking, your mental state, I would not be here. And so my voice became louder and it grew. And when my voice came louder and just sharing who I was and all the ethnicity from the down to the up, I was able to grow and get healthy. Because again, cancer takes you from the inside out. So I looked good, but no one knew that it took me an hour or two to get up in the morning. No one knew that I would be throwing up or just different health issues that would happen before I even started my day. Just being an African American woman that was bald headed, those were things that I had to go up against. But every time I would hear my voice, it would just get louder and louder and louder. So your voice, I'll tell everybody who's listening, find your voice and use it, and you will see the strength that you have of no other when you use your voice.
Find your voice and use it, and you will see the strength in you. Tonya, thank you so much. Solange, did that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay. Right. So who else has a question for Tonya? We are gradually but steadily moving to the end of this 7th edition of the Progress webinar. Any more questions? If not, then we will be taking 2 conclusions from 2 participants, and that will be it. Okay, so I guess we've listened to those stories, really, really interesting. We could stay here the whole day listening to Christy and Tonya, but I guess we will have to leave it at that for now, and perhaps continue some other time. But before we run off, we would just call on 2 participants to appreciate what we've done today. Is Mbole Kane there? I would love to hear from her at least. Mbole, are you there? Okay, apparently we don't have her.
Yeah, Mr. Ernest, I actually wanted to ask a question to Coach Christy.
Beautiful. Okay, last question, Daniel.
Yeah, Coach Christy, I've known Coach Christy for about a year now, and I've been following her on social media. I really feel inspired by all her stories, content that she has been creating online every day. So I also saw that she wrote a book, and I got so inspired by the title of her book. So I was so anxious about knowing why she decided to choose that title, like The Power in You, because it really speaks, it really speaks louder, and I think it's a very great title. So my question is, what really inspired you to make the choice of that title?
Thank you so much, Daniel, for this beautiful question. Um, I would give a very straight answer to your question. From my experience, I noticed that we all have what it takes. We are like a complete package. We have a lot embedded in us. And until we start to give ourselves the opportunity to discover what is hidden, we have a lot of strengths that lie dormant. If you don't activate them, you will never find them. If you don't use them, you might even lose them. And relating directly to a faith-based connection that I mentioned before, we are all made in the image and likeness of God, and He has equipped us to go through life, to go through everything we meet daily. So when you acknowledge yourself, you make yourself available for self-discovery. You are able to identify all the potentials that you have within you. You have to reactivate them and put them in use. So that was what I learned, and I put it in the book I wrote, that we all have that hidden in us. So we should activate them. And if we find some strengths that are like weaknesses, we can always modify them, and we grow in them as we exercise them and use them. seriously, you won't even realize the person you're going to become. And that is why I also mentioned that there are a lot of things we go through in life. We can find ourselves in areas of insecurity or fears. You know, something can happen and you react in a way that it's so deteriorating. It's going to aggravate what you're actually going through at the moment. But when you are able to tap to that inner strength and power that is hidden in you, there are situations and circumstances that will happen in your life, and you say to it that you look at it from a different point of view. It's like a stepping stone. Others might be saying, oh, that's the end of it. But to you, you look at it from a different, completely opposite. You know, to me, life is just beginning, even if the worst has happened. And we all have what it takes. Thank you so much, Daniel, for the question.
We all have what it takes. Thank you so much, Christiana, for that. I want to thank you once again for letting us listen to your story today. It was quite enriching, just like that of Tonya. Both of you have been wonderful guests, and I guess we are happy to have had you today. We are running off this conversation today. We will just have two last words from two participants. I don't know if Mbola is here. Mbola, are you here? Okay, if not, then Solange. We are about to run off. So tell us, how did we do today, Solange?
I think awesome as always. By the time you think you heard the best, you see the next week comes, it's like it's just better and it just keeps getting better. I just want to thank Christy so much. You're a gentle giant. I like to call you a gentle giant. I don't know you in person, but you gentle, but you're a giant. You made us understand all things are possible. Nothing is impossible. If you believe in yourself, you believe in God and your abilities, everything is possible. And to Tonya, thank you so much for just sharing your inspiring story and your resilience. I personally think your students are a reflection of you. You said your students are go-getters. They're just, they just make it happen in the midst of the pandemic. And that's a reflection of the teacher they have. They are a reflection of your resilience in the fight that is in you, the force that is in you. So you're a force to reckon with. And thank you for sharing your awesome story with us. And to the founder of this show,
thank you so much, Solange. Truly, we are quite pleased to have listened to these stories today. So we're going to have the very last word from yet another participant, then that will be it for today. Maxell, are you there? Okay, unfortunately, Maxell is not there. Danielle, so run off one last word, then we are gone.
Oh, thank you very much for opportunity to speak and talk. And my final word, I always say, education is the key to success. The way you move is how you love. Have a good weekend.
Okay, thank you so much, Tonya. I guess at this point, we will be bidding bye to everybody. So thank you to our speakers. Hopefully, we will have you on this platform again in the same capacity sometime down the road. And we are praying that if we extend that invitation, you would honor it. So thank you once again. For everybody, I want to thank you so much. We are back here on the 27th of August, that is in 2 weeks, to continue telling those interesting stories. Thank you for having stayed around till the end of this discussion. Do have a fantastic weekend and may God bless you. So bye to everybody.